am on a Wednesday evening, and I'm joined by my good friend, longtime friend, and former college roommate, Wes Witt, dialing in live from Columbus, Ohio. How's it going, Wes?
It's going pretty good. Got the girls to bed. Got some time to have an interview.
Perfect. Yeah, in getting this interview scheduled, that we had to reschedule and pick a time that was on dad time. And I'm learning, this is my first lesson of getting on dad time, I think, here.
Yeah, it's a fluid time in our house. Weiler is a night owl, so it's anybody's guess what time the free time comes around here.
Well, you're the father of two daughters, Weiler, who's 3 or just past 3, and Windsor, who's just past 6 months now.
She's 5 months in a week, actually, tomorrow. So she's getting to be
Congrats.
about a half a year. Yeah, thanks, man.
That's amazing. A family of 4. I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I originally thought that I wanted a boy, and we were surprised with both of the girls because we didn't want to find out. And I was so thrilled to have Weiler. And then when we were having Windsor, I was like, oh, I want to have a boy just so I can carry on the name. But when we had another girl, I was relieved, and I was so happy to have two girls. So it's interesting how I went into it before we had any kids, and how it became like I just want to have these girls and be good with the two girls, and we're good.
So you guys are good. That's it. Two and done.
Yeah, that's all we're doing. I'm not interested in trying that again. Whether we could guarantee that a boy would come this time or not, it's the fear of having twins is pretty real, and and the thought of having to spread love around to another kid is just overwhelming. So no, we don't want to do that.
What are you guys making this official? Is two? Are you making this official? Like, are you snipping things to make sure that there will be no more babies had, or is this just like we'll use our best precautionary measures?
No, there's definitely going to be a snip, but I'm just still waiting for Beckett to sign the contract that says like once I snip it, it's just game on all the time because there's no fear.
This is I assume this is not like an actual written contract. This is a
No, it's not. No, it's just a joke it's a running joke. I'm like, if I'm doing this, there's no chance of anything going awry ever again.
Oh man.
It's all day, every day, except for the whole time the girls are awake, which is all day, every day.
All day, every day. Um, well, you mentioned two things that kind of start me with like questions that I have. I mean, I am the curious person who may one day become a dad. So I hear you talk to a lot of parents that are like, well, we found out the sex of the child beforehand, and some wanted to go the surprise route. Were there any motivations behind keeping it a surprise?
Well, really, I wanted to find out because I'm a planner, but Beckett wanted to have a surprise, and I talked to some other people, and the one thing that rung in my mind out of all the different things that people said about both sides of that coin was it's really the only surprise you could ever sign up for that means anything in life. So that I was like, you know what, that's really good way to look at it. So I'm totally on board for that. And I had such a good time the first time that we were both on board with it again. So it was cool.
What
I kind of wanted to find out the second time just to know, like, can we get rid of all this stuff that we've been keeping? and, and should we like try to exchange this stuff for boy stuff? But other than that, that was the only reason I considered finding out the second time.
What is that? Can you take me into the operating room and not like visually, but just like from an emotional standpoint? What is the anticipation like, not knowing what the sex of the baby is going to be, and in that moment it's happening?
You know what? It's really funny because it wasn't like I was like, oh my God, are we going to have a boy? Are we going to have a girl? That was kind of not really the focal point of my attention when we were there. When we had Weiler, we had a C-section, and it was because she was breech. So we went in, and we hadn't done an exam recently enough to know whether she had flipped or not. But Becca had done a bunch of stuff like alternative, like Eastern medicine things like moxibustion and chiropractic stuff, and she was doing a lot of headstands in the pool the week before it happened.
No
She's been
kidding.
like, okay, flip over, baby, you're buoyant. And we thought everything was cool, and then we found out that that wasn't the case. So we had this C-section, which was basically like, okay, this is happening. And it was crazy because I watched it, and it was like, it was awesome. It was fascinating that they were so like almost elbow deep in my wife's insides. I'm like, how did you get into that stomach? Like, it's not that big. How do you have your whole forearm in there? And how did you not find the baby yet? And so with Weiler, when they pulled her out, they like wrung her out like a rag. It was the craziest thing. And she was purple, but it was a really fast situation, and nobody seemed nervous. So I'm just watching, like, I guess this is a daily routine for these people, and this is how babies come out. They just get like twisted 180 degrees. That's weird. And so she was all swollen because of it. So they were like, hey, Dad, what did you have? And they showed her to me, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
You know, privates were like all swollen. I'm like, what is going on that right there? I'm not sure what this is that I'm looking at.
I get, yeah.
You had a girl, and I'm like, a girl, it's great. And, you know, I was crying. So it was cool. It was overwhelming. And then like with Windsor, it was also a bit like overwhelmingly emotional, just because Beckett did an all natural birth, and that was what we were trying to do with Weiler. So she powered through with Windsor because she was in the right position, head down, and it was like just Beckett being so strong to do that. It was like so touching, you know. And so like seeing Windsor like coming out, like going back in, all that crazy stuff, and like she came out, I'm like, oh my god, we had a little girl, this is great, you know. It was just like, I wasn't like, let's find out what this kid is, you know. It was like, this whole experience is just like, every single second is just like its own moment in time. It's just like everything is like, you're just living in the moment, like purely in the moment. So it's pretty cool.
I feel like from hearing you describe it, you have no choice but to be, I mean, every moment is just punching you in the face pretty much at that point. Like,
yeah.
And there's no ducking it. It's like the full front. It's like when you get on a roller coaster and you're sitting in the front seat. You go up to the top and you're like, well, there's no going back now.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can't avert my eyes from this, so this is happening and it's coming at me.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was. I mean, there's tons of anticipation and lots of thoughts on both sides of it, as far as whether you're going to have a boy, whether you're going to have a girl, up until you get to that moment. But once you get there, man, it's like, hang on to your hats, people, because this thing is game on. And speaking of punching in the face, I almost got punched in the face by Beckett because she was trying to labor in the shower, and so they had two shower heads that were opposing, and one was just like spraying out of the shower all over the bathroom floor in the hospital, and it was like soaking the floor, and it wasn't draining properly, and it was like water was so deep it was going up my pant legs and everything. And she had this like telemetry machine attached to her, and we were pulling around this thing on wheels like you would like if you had an IV in, you know. And I kept trying to like sop up the water with the towels, and she was going from like hanging on in the shower to like going sitting down on the toilet. She needed to take a break, and she's like, Wes, I'm gonna need you to focus a little bit less on the water situation and a little bit more on what's going on here.
Yes.
And that was about as intense as she got, which I thought was really pretty good, considering, you know, I could see her totally going off the deep end if she really was pushed.
Well done, Beckett. Well done.
Yeah. So she did good.
Well, what is I mean, how does it get? Does it get any easier? You have two baby girls now. I mean, it sounds like the first one was a really intense experience. The second one went somewhat smoother, as smooth as a childbirth can. I mean, were you less concerned? Are you now any less surprised as a dad now that you've got a second one growing up? It's getting easier.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. But it's interesting that how different they are. Like the whole pregnancy was totally different with Windsor. Beckett suffered through it a lot more than she did with Weiler. Weiler was just basically a dream baby, like an angel baby, and Windsor was difficult. She had issues with, which we found out, which Beckett had to cut milk and all dairy out of her diet because it was causing Windsor basically colic. And I think it was for the first maybe, I don't know, I think it was like 9 weeks of her life. It was just like she was miserable all the time. She was screaming and just in pain. And it was really aggravating for us. I mean, we were on the last nerve. It was a challenging time. And with Weiler, it was like, you know, I guess they say, you know, you forget the stress so that you can procreate. That's like the way that you're wired. It's like you're in it and you're like, this is the worst thing ever. And then like 3 months later, you're like, you should probably plan to do this again. But as far as like once everything starts running smoothly, I feel that it's a lot less stress, like a lot less what if, because Weiler's been in all these stages before and there's a lot more comparison to the way things were with Weiler than pure mystery.
I'm curious. I'm thinking about this as we're going along. I can't remember. Do you have any siblings?
I don't. No.
All right. So, I mean, how are you, I mean, you're raising 2 girls now, right? Like you didn't have any experience being a girl growing up. So what are you doing right now to try to be a good father? What kind of approach are you taking to this for the girls?
Well, yeah, it's interesting you asked that question because the first diaper I ever changed in my life was Weiler's diaper in the hospital. So I knew nothing about kids. And when I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or something, my mom's boss came over and they had a baby and they were like, oh, you can hold the baby. I mean, I was younger than 12. Maybe I was 9 or 10. But they're like, you can hold the baby. And he started like squirming or something happened. And I got freaked out and I just dropped him on the floor. So,
no. Oh no.
And he turned out to be like a total Satan spawn kid. He was the worst kid ever as a child. He would take his mom's keys and like threaten to drop him in a sewer, and he did it multiple times. But anyway, you know, I based on that moment, people would say, "How's this guy going to do with a couple of children?" But the approach I'm taking is just, you know, be as loving and fun as possible, and you know, don't be a drag, and just kind of embrace life to its fullest and be there for especially Weiler, because her imagination is so rich and she's just ready to, you know, pretend and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just there pretending with her and encouraging that, and just being very encouraging, I think, is the way to do it. And Beckett is so helpful with that, because if I'm stressed out or something from work, or, you know, I'm not fully engaged, she'll help to bring me over to that place. And she's an amazing mom, and she is so responsible for how these girls are that, you know, I'm lucky that it's easy to be a dad to them, because she's shaping them to be as cool as she is. So of course, you know, I'm in love with them like I am with her. So
yeah, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
What do you so I wanted to ask you this because, you know, you're a musician. You introduced me to a lot of great music when we were living together. What do you draw? I mean, do you draw any inspiration from your time as a bass player or as a musician as a whole, and being a dad? Is there anything that you can liken the 2 experiences, or anything that taught you about playing music that's prepared you for being a father?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I thought that I was going to be able to take these opportunities, the pregnancy, for example, or, you know, once the girls were here, to be more inspired to write more music or to play more music or that type of thing. And there's just like 0 time to do that. So I haven't had the luxury of, I think you're going to lose light here in a second. I haven't had the luxury of doing those things that I wanted to do in that regard. But the way that it's similar is that I have basically taught myself how to play bass. I never took any kind of formal lessons. And I had, some friends who were musicians who I learned things from. I just picked up things here and there and, got books and learned this and that. And it's kind of the same exact situation with being a dad.
Man, so, yeah. I think you summed up of what it's probably going to be like for a lot of us is you just have, nobody's going to be there there's no classes we can, well, they are, right, Claire, sort of. Did you take any classes? Are there classes?
I didn't take any classes. No, I mean, we went to hospital to see what it's like, when you're there, so that you don't just walk in and go, so what do we do now?
You said you went and saw someone else in labor, like a live birth of someone else?
No, it wasn't quite that involved. It was just like, what to expect and how, like, the flow of the hospital, like when you get in, where do you go, that kind of thing. And then we took a class on, I don't even remember, man. It was something that we did before Weiler. It was just like a basics class. Like, here's some stuff that you should probably know about, how to deal with an infant. Don't shake them. It was like a video that was essentially like, this is why you don't shake a baby. Here's their spine. Here's their brainstem. And what happens when you shake them is it just kind of separates from their brain. They bleed internally and die. Like, got it.
Noted. For a moment there, though, I had a mental image of you guys at a hospital with like cameras and notepads and watching
checking somebody else out, like
family. Excuse me, what did you just do right there, real quick? Was that last move something? Was that a technique? All right. Well, listen. I mean, what do you say to somebody who's going to be a new dad? I mean, what's your biggest? So you've got 3.5 years head start on a bunch of people who maybe are becoming dads. I just had a friend who had a baby last night. Congrats, Jay Matt.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. He had to miss our fantasy football draft because of it, but I don't think he was upset about it. He had a baby boy, healthy baby boy. So, I mean, what's your biggest tip? What's your go-to advice for new dads out there?
Well, I would say, just like your friend, he had to miss that thing because he was having a kid. And that's pretty much what you need to accept before you jump into it, is that you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff that you used to be able to do when you didn't have a kid. And you got to be okay with that. And you got to be able to balance, who you are. You got to be comfortable with who you are, because if you haven't found yourself yet and you have a kid, then you're going to constantly be struggling with the fact that you don't have time to find yourself because you're busy trying to help shape someone else. So I would say that you should, go and do all the things that you think that you need to do, because once you have a kid, man, it's like you're over for a little while. You become basically a teacher, a guardian, a caregiver, and you have to make different time for yourself. Just like this interview, we had to reschedule it a lot.
You gotta make dad time when you can get it.
Yeah. So it's tough. And, that's my advice to guys. To women, I'd say it's probably even more intense than that. I mean, Beckett's she's not drinking, she hasn't had an opportunity to get drunk since she found out that we were pregnant with Windsor, and because she's nursing exclusively and she doesn't want to do that, and she of course could pump and dump or do that type of thing, but that just hasn't happened yet because Windsor's not taking a bottle yet. So it's very trying. It's a very trying thing, but some people do it differently. I mean, I guess it's just my personal experience. Some people figure out a way to continue to live their lives and have kids. And, I think it's probably different if you have family that lives close to you. Mine are an hour and a half away. Hers are about 2.5 away. So it's not like we can just say, hey, you guys got the kids tonight, we're going out on a date night. Date nights are few and far between. So I'd say make sure that you're really comfortable with your partner as well. get your romance in line, and all those things, because it's an interesting change to your whole dynamic to be both in charge of somebody else, and both of you guys are paying more attention to somebody other than each other. And sometimes that gets a little bit weird with some people that we've talked to, but we waited a long time. We're going to be celebrating 11 years here next month, so
That's
I think
amazing.
we're I think we figured each other out enough.
Yeah, I think that's sage advice, though. I don't think you can. I think having the baby is only a small part of that equation, and having happy marriage going into it is probably has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, because you don't want to be tense around your kids. I mean, you want them to have a real loose and happy and fun and free life, because there's plenty of tension in the world, and if you can shelter them from that and make them think that everything is happy and fun all the time, that's the way to go, in my opinion.
They'll be able to turn on the local news soon enough and get enough tension.
Yeah, exactly. Every night.
Well, Wes, thank you, man. This has been really helpful and really insightful, and I appreciate it. And I'm glad to hear you guys are doing well too. I know you guys are happy out there in Ohio.
Yeah, man. Be happier when you come out to visit too.
Soon enough, my friend.
I know. We got to come see you guys too.
Yeah. We'll be here. Maybe sometimes we're here.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Well, listen, Wes, is there any way you want to do? We'll do something when we post this. Maybe that if people have questions or anything like that, they can get in touch with you further. We'll make it known how to do that. But I really appreciate it. And this has been episode 2 of All My Friends Are Dads with Wes Witt and his 2 beautiful daughters, Windsor and Weiler, and his lovely wife, Beckett. And thanks for listening. Episode 3 coming sometime soon. Take care.